Hi there, good noon and welcome to another session where we pick up an exam, dive deeper into it and ensure that our preparation goes ahead and moves smoothly, moves holistically so that you do not find yourself in a tight spot eventually when the exams arrive. And the exam that we plan to pick up today is SNAP. So as usual, let us start with one basic question, and that is, hey, what is it? What exactly is SNAP? So SNAP is essentially an exam which is conducted for the Symbiosis clan of colleges. The full form is Symbiosis National Aptitude Test. So it's basically SNAP test, but because it is computer based, nowadays they call it SNAP CBT or computer based test. Now, as an aspirant, why should you bother about this particular exam? Why should you sit for SNAP really? As usual, we sit for any exam, we fill up the form only if that exam opens a door for us to our target colleges. And when it comes to SNAP, it opens the door for 15 of the Symbiosis colleges. I think in this year onwards it is actually going to be 16. All of these colleges are affiliated with the Symbiosis International University and offer a degree through that university. There is one college that is a non-Symbi college, non-Symbiosis college, yet goes ahead and takes or uses the score of this particular exam. I will also tell you about that college. So I welcome you to BYJU'S exam prep channel dedicated to your success as an MBA aspirant. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon so that you know it, right? That tells you whenever every single session goes live or is uploaded here for you. So my name is Vikrant. I've been helping students for the last 22 years. And in these 22 years, there have been thousands of students who have reached their dream B schools, dream colleges, dream jobs with some inputs from me. So let's move back to why SNAP? Because we are targeting certain colleges. And Sanskar has a question. Sir, only preparing for OMATs, not CAT, is it still possible to crack SNAP above 45? Absolutely, Sanskar. But then I would not really agree with this strategy of preparing only for the non-CAT exams. See, 70% of the syllabus at the end of the day is similar, right? And thus it makes a lot of sense to also include CAT in your matrix, in your mix. So colleges under SNAP. So obviously all of us have heard of Symbiosis Institute of Business Management. This actually happens to have 4 campuses that you are aware of. So it started in Pune, then they opened another campus in Bangalore or Bangalore as we call it nowadays, right? And thereafter they branched out and they got into 2 more locations. So which 2 locations? Any guesses? So they went to Nagpur and Hyderabad, and from this year on they've opened 1 more campus. You know where that is? Noida. So majority of their colleges were essentially in the central southern parts of the country. So they thought that, hey, why should people at NCR miss out on it? So they've started a campus at Noida as well. So the best known campus, although among all the 5, is still Pune. Then you have Symbiosis Center for Management and Human Resource Development, again in Pune. Fabulous little college. Then SIIB, Symbiosis Institute for International Business. SIMS, Symbiosis Institute of Management Science. Then SIDTM, Symbiosis Institute for Digital and Telecom Management. So initially when this college started, it was just called SITM. but then with the advent of a lot of digital stuff, they've started incorporating that, and the name also reflects that particular change. And then you have a lot of other colleges. SIOM is another fabulous one that focuses on operations management, and then there are some more new ones. For example, you have this Symbiosis School for Banking and Finance. You also have this college called okay, jokes apart, 4 times S, Symbiosis School of Sports Sciences. Now, I've talked about all of these places, but then are these colleges worth it? So I think at the end of the day, majority of the students that I talk to, they look at just 1 or 2 core factors, and those factors are the fees and the placements. So let's go ahead and talk about those. So if I talk about SIBM Pune, okay, then at SIBM Pune, the fees last year was 20,72,000 rupees, and that essentially gave you an average pay package of around 26.7 lakhs per annum. So that's for Pune. Okay, the other end of the spectrum, you know that there are 5 campuses. I don't have data for Noida yet because it's just their first year. But if I look at Hyderabad, it has the lowest fees among all the SIBM campuses except for Noida, because I don't have the stats for Noida yet. The fees there is 13,20,000 rupees, and the average pay packet, if I am not mistaken, was around 9 lakhs per annum or 8,90,000 per annum, right? So that's for SIBM. So when you look at SIBM Pune, you realize that the equation is really very favorable. Any college where the average pay package is more than the fees that it charges is generally a really good ROI, really good return on investment. Similarly, if I talk about SCM HRD, the fees is 20,06,000 rupees. And the average placements last year were 23,70,000 rupees. SIIB, the equation is not as favorable, but still the fees, and here is the placement. SIMS, I don't think I have the requisite or the relevant data for SIMS yet, but let me talk about SIDTM because it has the fees was around 12.5 lakh rupees, and the average placements were once again above the fees. SIOM is really interesting. Again, the fees is around 13.5 lakh rupees, but the average pay package last year was around 18 lakhs, and last year I think it should be a little higher than that. So let us say in the vicinity of 18 to 19 lakhs per annum. And then these banking and finance, sports sciences, relatively new courses, and here is the stat for these, the relevant stats, okay. And sports sciences, not very expensive, 8 lakhs, but then the average pay package was also around 6.5 lakh rupees. So that's the kind of equation. So you realize some of these colleges should definitely fit into the list of every applicant. So SIBM, SCM HRD, SIOM, definitely colleges that you can apply, and then some of these colleges like SIIB, SIDTM, etc. can actually be kept as a backup option for us, right? And thus, I believe that SNAP is one college or one exam that we should definitely go ahead and write, okay? So, but then why are we talking about it right now? Most of us are focused on the CAT and we are preparing, and didn't I tell you that 70% of the syllabus is identical? So what's the point? Well, there are a couple of reasons why we are focusing on it right now, and reason number 1 is that this exam is conducted just after the CAT exam. You don't have much time, frankly. You barely get a couple of weeks. In fact, going by the dates of 22, it was conducted across 3 slots. The first exam was conducted on 10th of December, then 18th, and then 23rd. Incidentally, you could actually sit for all the three and the best of the three would have counted. And the trouble is that the exam pattern is different from the CAT. So considering that you have just 2 weeks, you may not be in a position to take care of all those differences, and therefore it is important for you to start talking or start preparing for SNAP along with your CAT preparation. So what are those differences? First up, let's have a look at the paper pattern itself. So you see something very interesting. 15 English questions, 25 analytical and logical reasoning questions, 20 questions from Quant, DI and DS. So you notice the utility of Quant and DI is diminished a lot. So there are some people who come to me every year and they say, sir, math नहीं होती मेरे से, math डुबो देती है मुझे, ये अपने बस की नहीं है. हाँ, so for those individuals, I think SNAP is an excellent exam to write because the utility of Quant is fairly low. And so overall, the total number of questions is 60, but the look at the total marks are also 60. But one thing that I would also like to add here is that the total time is going to be just 60 minutes. So it is definitely going to be more a test of speed as compared to the CAT. Okay, taking this theme further, if you look at the SNAP pattern, it has actually changed over the years. It is one of those exams that did not exactly give that feeling of being a settled exam for quite a while. In fact, look at this. So you notice 2018 had current affairs, then 2019, 20 and right to 22 you did not have current affairs. And from 19 to 20, you notice the total number of questions went down, and thereafter it assumed a semblance of normalcy, stability. So some of the key things that I want to point out are, number one, see, in SNAP 2018 was the first time when they introduced some special questions. Those special questions were essentially sort of non-MCQs, and there were 20 of those in 2018. They got inspired by the CAT. The CAT also had non-MCQs, remember? But the total number of questions reduced from 150 to 130. Then when it came to SNAP 2019, they still had these non-MCQs, but the total number of non-MCQs reduced dramatically. So instead of 20, you had just 5 non-MCQs, and then the marks were revised. So you went from 1 mark per question to 1.5 mark per question. But then came the pandemic and the exams thereafter. So in the last 3 exams, SNAP 20, 21, 22, the pattern has been more or less stable. The duration, the first hit was duration. Instead of being a 2-hour exam, it became just a 1-hour exam. Total number of questions went down to just 60. Okay. Eventually they settled on 60, and they reverted to 1 mark per question instead of 1.5 mark per question. So these are the kind of changes that have occurred, but if I compare it head on head with the CAT, here are some key differences. Number one, the difficulty level is usually easier as compared to the CAT. So you talk about Quant, you talk about DI, you talk about a lot of those reasoning based questions. If you compare, you'd see that they are going to be easier. At the same time, unlike the CAT, SNAP does not go in for normalization of the scores. So you know, in the CAT, they have different slots. Then they look at the difficulty level of every slot, and then they adjust the final normalized scores, right? So imagine if you were writing the exam in a tougher slot, then every correct question should give you more marks, right? So they make those adjustments, and that at times can appear a little uncertain, to some people even unfair. But this is your good old conventional same set of questions given to everybody, and then you get marks from there. There is not going to be any normalization. So 60 questions versus 66 questions of the CAT. However, you have 60 minutes versus this 120-minute thing. So although superficially looking at the number of questions, they appear quite similar, in reality this time makes a whole lot of difference. Additionally, the marking scheme for SNAP, +1 for every right and minus 0.25 for every wrong. So the penalty for getting a question wrong happens to be lower in SNAP as compared to the CAT. And you know, CAT, every section is a timed section. You get 40 minutes per section. When it comes to the SNAP, there is no sectional time limit. You can devote those 60 minutes in whichever way you want to, and then per se the exam does not have any sectional cutoff. Although some colleges may choose to introduce cutoffs, so I'd still suggest that you go for a balanced score. But on the whole, it is still an exam where you can spend more time on the area that you are comfortable with and maximize your score through that area. Okay, so that's basically about the core differences between the SNAP and the CAT. Now, if I dig deeper and start getting into individual areas, okay, so for example, if I talk about English in SNAP, you'd actually be surprised. It is perhaps the only B school entrance exam that does not ask reading comprehension. So you go through it, there are 15 questions, not a single one of them is a passage. Although they do give us a poem, and after that poem you may get a grammar kind of question or an RC kind of question occasionally, but still different, no conventional RC passage. So if they don't ask you RC, what do they ask? Almost half or at times even more of this section consists of grammar based questions. And when it comes to grammar, they ask you a lot of foundational questions. Okay, so when I say basics, I'm talking about questions that ask you about the part of speech of a word. We have seen questions in the past where they've asked us for identifying the type of sentence, okay, all those things, really basic things. Okay, and then of course you'd have your usual error identification questions that can be based on subject verb agreement, prepositions, tenses, occasionally direct indirect speech, active passive voice, all those things. So loads and loads of grammar, and the other half or less usually comes from vocabulary, where they'll ask you things like, or they can ask you things like synonyms, antonyms, fill in the blanks, all those sorts. So significantly different from our CAT exam. So SNAP had questions like parajumbles in the past, so we can definitely add it, but there is no guarantee that you'd have parajumbles 2 in this particular exam. So significantly different, and therefore requires a completely different strategy, a completely different approach to the paper. Then if I talk about analytical and logical reasoning, this is once again going to be different from the way CAT pans out. So if I look at the split usually, then I think in 2021 we had 10 questions of analytical reasoning and 15 from logical reasoning. However, last year the difference was not as pronounced. We had 12 questions from analytical reasoning and 13 from logical reasoning. And when I say logical reasoning here, I'm mostly talking about areas that pertain to verbal reasoning or verbal logic. So a lot of us, when we prepare, we tend not to give a lot of focus, a lot of emphasis to verbal reasoning. But if you want to go ahead and ace SNAP, verbal reasoning is going to be an absolutely crucial part, absolutely crucial area for you. So which all chapters or topics do you need to focus on when it comes to verbal reasoning? Well, there you go. Syllogisms. You should expect a couple of questions from syllogisms and another couple of questions that are based on critical reasoning. So I hope that you are preparing for these two areas thoroughly. And then they have an arsenal of questions that are built around verbal reasoning or are in a way an application of critical reasoning further up. For instance, they can ask you a statement assumption question. They give you a statement followed by a couple of assumptions, and you need to tell them which one of these two assumptions is inherent in the argument given to you. It can be a statement conclusion question. It can be a question that is based on course of action, or a question that tests your understanding of cause and effect. So all of these things would typically contribute around half of the section, and therefore that automatically goes on to become your major thirst, your major focus area. Then let's move over to the non-verbal or the analytical part of the affair, right? So in the analytical side, we get a lot of questions from number series, letter series, word series, etc. In fact, last year, if my memory serves me right, we had around 4 to 5 questions from this itself. Then you have questions, a couple of questions based on linear arrangements, questions from blood relations, questions from clocks and calendars. I remember there were 2 questions from clocks in my slot. Then coding and decoding, puzzles, all of these things, right? So these are the areas that you typically want to focus on when it comes to analytical and logical reasoning. And then finally, when it comes to quant, DI and DS, now this is an area where you shouldn't have very many surprises. Okay, so just like the CAT, a large chunk of the questions still come from arithmetic. So you should typically expect around 6 to 7 questions from arithmetic. Then maybe another 4 odd questions from algebra. And then there are a lot of areas that contribute 1 or 2 questions. For example, geometry, numbers, permutation and combinations, probability. All of these last year actually went on to contribute 2 questions each, right? So that's typically around half of the section, and then the other half will essentially be based on DI and DS. So in DI, you can get a lot of table-based data interpretation questions, so make sure that you master those. Additionally, we also get these column graphs and pie charts that we need to focus on. So these are going to be the dominant themes for us. Okay, so you realize when it comes to quant, DI, DS, you may not need to prepare something specifically extra. However, when it comes to logic and English, it deviates significantly from the CAT, and anybody who's not preparing for those other new areas is likely to struggle in this particular exam. So what sort of cutoff are we talking about? So first up, cutoffs in terms of percentiles. Here's a broad list. So you notice you start getting colleges like SIBM and SCM HRD at around, so SIBM around 98 plus percentile, SCM HRD is usually half a percentile lower, but for those two, top two, okay, SIBM Pune and SCM HRD, you are essentially looking at 98 to 98 and a half percentile, and for the rest of the colleges, it would usually start going low. So for SIIB, see this here, SIOM, look at the cutoff for SIBM Hyderabad, right? So that's the equation that we have. And if I talk about it in terms of scores, something that a lot of us will be keen on, then generally we say that you need to have a score of around 35 plus, where you start getting the calls from the relatively better, relatively higher ranked SIMB colleges. But if I talk about the absolute top, something like SIBM, you definitely are targeting a score of 42 and plus. So here is a table that will clarify this even further. So for SIBM Pune, if I look at it historically, if I look at the last 2-3 years, you are essentially targeting 42 plus. A safe score will be something like 45, 46. Now, why am I calling this a safe score? See, the score in the written exam plays some role in the final selection. So when it comes to the final selection at SIBM, your snap score is basically given 50% of the weightage. So the higher the score that you have here, the better it is, right? Then the personal interview ends up getting 30% weightage. Then they put you through a VAT. That's 10% weightage right there, and a group exercise, which is another 10% weightage right there. So the higher your score in SNAP, the more that breathing space that you get in the other stages, especially in group exercise. Okay. So after pandemic, a lot of us at times are not all that comfortable when it comes to group exercises or group activities, right? For SCM HRD, you need a score of 40 plus, but once again, just add 4-5 marks to the cutoffs because of the role that the score plays in the final selection. Then SIIB Pune. For SIBM Bangalore, it goes further still. SIBM Nagpur, Hyderabad are again going to be further down in the pecking order, with Noida forming the base. And then for SIOM, you're still targeting around 32. And here are the corresponding percentiles. Okay, so that's the kind of preparation that you need to have so that you are able to reach these scores out of 60, right? So just some of those key things. Why have I NMAT here? Just some of those key things that I want to reiterate once again. Start focusing on all the new areas. So predominantly the new areas are grammar, vocabulary, and verbal reasoning, predominantly these. And even in the analytical reasoning areas like blood relations, etc., we don't focus as much on them when it comes to our CAT prep, so you want to focus on those. So where can you focus on these areas? You know, particularly grammar. I'll suggest a killer source for you. You know about BYJU'S exam prep app. So we have created a fabulous exhaustive course that gives you a lot of recorded lectures as well. And in fact, when it comes to the foundations of English, you know, you want to know what parts of speech, you want to know what a phrase is, what a clause is, what a subject is, what an object is, what all these different types of sentences are. You can simply subscribe to BYJU'S exam prep app, start going through those recorded video lectures, and all those foundations will be covered in no time, at a pace and a time that is most suitable for you. We do that. In fact, even for our quant, we have started a series on the app. It's open to all, you can try it, where we're beginning with ultra basics, okay, absolute basics. Then make sure that you do write a lot of mock exams for SNAP, and after every exam, analyze your performance thoroughly and think of the strategy. Okay, so whichever areas that you are weak at, make sure that you start working on those specific areas, and thereafter make sure that you adopt a unique test taking strategy. So see, when it comes to the CAT, okay, when it comes to the CAT, you have these different sections where every section is timed. So that requires a different approach. You don't have to think much about you know, the order in which you want to go through those sections, etc. But when it comes to the SNAP, you would have to think of the best order for you. You'd have to take a call across all these different sections and then move on. But here, that question selection, knowledge of strengths, all of those things will become even more important, even more relevant for you. So these are the things that if you start doing from today, start focusing on from today, they will help you immensely as you move forward towards writing the SNAP exam. And here's a thought that I want to leave you with. I rather regret the risks that did not work out than the chances I did not take at all. So take a chance on SNAP, start your preparation, and I'm sure you do amazingly well. In fact, if you want to be a part of people who score a great percentile, and these are the ones who achieved that success through our program, do consider joining this comprehensive CAT 23 program. And you notice this is what I was talking about. See this? 300 plus engaging videos. They span more than 130 hours. And then another relevant part, more than 75 mock tests, quite a few of them are oriented towards SNAP, and then more than 10,000 practice questions for you. Okay, so all of these things are taken care of here. And in order to make this decision easy for you, we are conducting a scholarship test on 28th of May, which is a week from now. So gear up for that and you can get up to 90% off. Additionally, if you want more practice, you can head over to our app where we upload a section-wise quiz every day. And you perhaps already know that we have this series going on where we talk about 500 most expected, most important CAT questions. It started a long while ago and we are soldiering through. In fact, I have my next session at 12 on this channel where we'd go ahead and work on VARC. Right? So do attend these and increase your chances of success. So that's it from me. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel, and if you found this video useful, don't forget to like it. Do follow us on Instagram and Facebook. We have a channel on Telegram where you can reach out to us and ask us questions, etc. there too. It's a very vibrant community. I'm sure you can benefit from that. So that's it from me today. Until I see you next, stay safe, stay focused, stay in touch. Have a great day ahead, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe.